So, after another delve into the world of words,
This is Acton Scott Historic Working Farm Museum, just near Church Stretton in Shropshire. Although, to give it its old name, it's Salop. And we're here to do What's in a Word on farming. And what word shall we do first of all? Well, how's about farm itself? It means rented land. And how did you pay for your rented land? Well, the lord of the land, or the landlord, would simply come and stay with you. If you had a big farm, he'd come and stay for weeks. If you had a little one, maybe just for a few days. And he would eat you out of house and home. Later, it changed a little bit. You started to do a few days' work for him each week. And then after that, it changed to money. A tenant, tenere, the Latin, to hold. It means you paid your rent, and in those days it was called a scot. And once you'd paid it, you got a free meal. Scot-free, that's where that comes from. Acton Scott. Wouldn't have been giving me any free nosh. Once you've got your land, you want to know how much of it you've got. And why do we use that strange measurement, an acre, 220 yards by 22 yards? Well, it was a long time before machinery came along. It was basically how far a team of oxen could plough in a day. An ox will plough a furrow 220 yards before it has to have a rest. A furrow long, which became a furlong. A furrow is 9 inches wide. So in order to do an acre, you have to walk 11 miles. And of course, on your farm, you have stock. Now that actually comes from the Saxon. Stock was wood that you collected for the winter. In fact, your wealth was judged by how much wood you had piled. Hence, stock pile, or having it in stock. Orchard is another Saxon expression, by the way. Ortyard, orchard. That's where it comes from. And you had livestock and you had dead stock later. You've got both of them here. Livestock, animal, dead stock, machinery. Horse with a cartload of manure. Manure, it actually means manual. I don't think I'm going to be shifting the manure manually. Some nice expressions for you. Treat the land like a baby. Keep its top clean, its bottom dry, and feed it little and often. And what about the secret to a good lay is a firm bottom? It's all right, by the way. A good lay is laying grass seeds on a firm bottom. Look at that. That's a fine turnover plough if ever I saw one. Actually, it's a reversible plough, that one. Now, we were talking about wood. There's a good story to do with William Rufus, the king, son of William the Conqueror. He was killed in the New Forest, bow and arrow, and it was a woodcutter who found him, and he took his body to the authorities, and they said, I say, what a good chap, here's 5 shillings. And he said, look, I don't want that, I'm a woodcutter. I want the right to collect wood in the New Forest. And they said, well, you can have as much wood as you can collect by hook or by crook. A hook was cutting it down here, and a crook was pulling it from the trees. That's where we get that from. What about setting the Thames on fire? Well, that one's changed over the years. A Thames, a corn sieve, T-E-M-E-S. If you did it really, really fast, sieving the corn, absolutely, really, really fast, someone would say, look, you'll be setting your Thames on fire. And a sack. When you worked on a farm, you had your own tools, and if the farmer didn't like what you were doing, he'd give you a sack to put them in and get lost. Getting the sack. And if you wanted to resign, you would cut one's stick, like that, and put it at the side of the chimney. That would let him know that you were leaving. No arguments. And you could be hired at a hiring fair. The farmers would check you over, look at your muscles, your teeth or whatever, and say, yeah, you're good, and give you a fasten penny. And that penny you kept, and it meant you had to work for him for a year. See this? This is a horse gin. Everything to do with mechanical stuff was called an engine. And this, when it rotated once, pulled by a horse, would make another wheel in there rotate 52 times. The Luddites had it wrong. Well, this is all very pleasant, but we must press on. We have a day's work to do. After all, we've got to bring home the bacon, which is another one, bringing home the bacon. That comes from fairs. If you won first prize at the fair, it was inevitably a pig, hence bringing home the bacon. And the bag. When you were selling a pig, you'd put it in a bag and take it to the market like that. If you were perhaps a little unscrupulous, you might grab a cat and stick it in the bag and take it to the market, jumping away. Quiet. When you got there, someone might open the bag, the cat would jump out. That's letting the cat out of the bag. It's exactly the same with pig in a poke. Poke is really from the French poche, posh, which becomes, when it's smaller, pocket. And sold a pup, exactly the same, putting a dog into the bag. Now, when your pig is ready to be made into bacon, you have to kill it, and then you hang it on a frame, which is called a bucket. There's nothing in that sack for you. It's called a bucket. And of course, the pig, once it's been killed, is still jittery like that. And that's kicking the bucket. Now, the person that looked after the pigs was a sty ward, Saxon word. And that's where we get steward from. So if you know anyone that works in the airlines or golf courses, that's what they used to be. They looked after the pigs. Aren't these gorgeous? The thing about country life was it was self-contained. Every village had a wright, that's someone who works in wood, wainwright, wheelwright, and every village had a smith, that's someone who works in metal, goldsmith, silversmith, and blacksmith. Blacksmith because they're working with iron. Now, I reckon that the smith actually comes from Saxon, to smite, to hit something. I'm not too sure, though, so if you know better, perhaps you could let me know. Anyway, that's why we've got so many smiths and so many wrights in the phone book. We have a smith working away here in his smithy. And we have some lovely expressions to do with smithies as well, like too many irons in the fire. Well, that's quite obvious, really, because if you have too many irons in your fire, you can't work them all and you'd ruin some of them. And what about strike while the iron's hot? Well, that's exactly what he's going to do in a minute, once I've got it hot, because obviously you can't bend metal when it's cold, but you can bend it once it's hot. And I think I've just about done it for him there. You know, on a farm, because of course a smithy would make everything for a farm, they have a harrow, which is a big sort of metal frame with spikes sticking down, and they drag it across a field. Well, they started to use those in funerals. They put them on top of the coffin with the spikes sticking up, and they put candles on the coffin. Then they got rid of the candles, turned it back upside down again, or the right way up, and put the coffin on top of it. The French word for harrow is hearse. So a harrow became a hearse. Simple.
Hey, come on, come on. Come on, please.
Right, okay. Only stop for a second. Time for a lovely walk in the countryside to take a look at these lovely beasts, cows. You know, the old English word for a cow is a fee. And because everybody paid for everything in cows, that was your fee. That's where that comes from. Pecunia is the old Latin word for cows, and because, again, everybody paid with cows, it was also for money. Capita, the number of cows that you had, or head of cows, hence capital, your wealth. These are actually Longhorn over here and Shorthorn here, and she is a darling. Hello. There's a lovely description of cows, you know, which is 4 stiff standers, 4 dilly danglers, 2 hooky crooks and 1 whim wham. 4 legs, 4 udders, 2 horns and a tail. Oh, just enjoy the sunshine, lie down. They called water pumps the iron cow because it had a tail, just like a cow, for pumping the water up, but also because some naughty people used to water down the milk. Have you ever seen a cow gadding about? That's running around a field with its tail straight up in the air, the only time it ever does it. And that's because it's avoiding the gadfly. The gadfly goes in behind the knee, goes up the leg, and to the base of the spine and puts a little hole through the hide. Terribly uncomfortable for the cow. So when they hear the gadfly, they gad about the field, which is where we get gadding about from. And talking about running in a field, what about this? They would give these to kids, children, and tell them to run round fields scaring away the birds. They're called clappers. Running like the clappers. Look at that, a roaring fire and someone doing a bit of knitting. I'll show you where this wool came from in just a moment. Now, this house is based on about the 1850s, and there's some good terms to do with a household, like, for example, a husband, a house-bonded man, someone tied to the farm. And from husband, you get husbandry. That's anything to do with farmland or working the earth, really, husbandry. Yokels, local yokels, people who put yokes, worked on the farm and put yokes on the back of their neck there, which held 2 buckets, and they carried water or milk in them. That's where yokels comes from. In every village, you'd get some illegitimate children, and it was the church's responsibility to look after them. They'd have to pay, say, a shilling a week and half a loaf of bread until they were 7 years old. And then they put them out to work on the farm. They farmed them out. And one of the jobs they quite often got was jumping onto clods of earth behind the plough. Jumping like that. Clodhoppers. Feet. Clodhoppers. The quick and the dead. Well, dead wood is like fencing, and quick wood is alive wood, like hedges, because quick is a Saxon word for alive. Quick and the dead. I'm pretty quick, because I noticed there's some homemade food around there. Hey, do you know what? The hand shearing sheep round there, they're being fleeced. That's where the expression comes from, being fleeced, having everything taken off you. Hey, I could live like a fighting cock here with all this lovely farmhouse food, and that expression is because fighting cocks were much prized possessions, and they lived a good life. People looked after them really well. Go on, there you go. What about cock of the walk? Cocks have an area where they rule the roost, and they walk round that area. And that is cock of the walk. They also have a pecking order, because the cock always gets to peck first. There you go. And then it goes down in order of importance within the group. Quickly, one about cartwheels for you. Stuck in a rut. Well, if you change your job, if you're working on a farm in the lowlands and you go to the highlands, you have to change the width of the wheels on your cart so that the balance is better for the cart. And that's getting out of the rut. Right, if you want to know more about the programme or anything, you can get in touch with us on the website. The details are at the bottom of the picture. I'll leave you with 3 nice sayings. One is, when you're sowing seeds, put 4 seeds in each hole. 1 for the rook, 1 for the crow, 1 to rot, and 1 to grow. And here's another one. When it's really damp ground, a cow has 5 mouths, because the 4 hoofs do just as much damage as 1 mouth. And the final one, if you want to know the difference between a weed and a flower in your garden, dig it up, leave it, replant it, and if it grows, It's a weed. See ya.